Welcome to the Republican Professor. This morning in California, we have an incredibly special guest, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious special guest, Miss Desiree Payne. Thanks for being here,
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Uh, Desiree, are you joining us from California?
No, I'm in Kentucky.
Kentucky?
Kentucky,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a beautiful state.
It is. It's very rainy. We're having the opposite
Oh,
weather of you right now.
I'm jealous. Oh man. Do you have thunderstorms there?
Yes, they're
Oh,
beautiful. I love it.
wow. Wow. No tornadoes?
Not this week, but
Not
I
this
did read
week.
that
Wow.
Eastern Kentucky is having severe flooding. Not
Oh,
where I'm
okay.
at, but further away.
Cool. Well, Kentucky likes guns, and we brought you on to
Right.
talk about firearms because the way I know you is through the Second Amendment activism community in California.
Yes.
I don't know anybody in Kentucky in the activism community, but I'm sure it exists there. But we recently sat together at a fundraiser and sat at the same table, I should say. just to
Yeah.
just to clarify, there was other
Yeah.
people at the table. It was a round table, and
Yes.
I got to know you a little bit and was impressed that you taught firearms. And so, how long have you done that? And feel free to correct me if I misdescribed something.
No, it's great. I think I've been involved about 8 or 9 years now, mostly in California. But no, you're right. We did meet at the gun prom in San Diego, which was fantastic. It was kind of a Knights of the Round Table, but with gun people.
Yeah. So, did you grow up with firearms? You're obviously comfortable and you're not afraid of them. So,
I didn't necessarily grow up with my parents having firearms. My father had firearms when I was really little, and he was hunting one day wearing his orange vest when another hunter blew the orange vest off of him out from under his arm, and all the stuffing flew out, and it scared him enough where he didn't want to go hunting for a while. And then he met my stepmother, and she had an unhealthy fear of firearms. She was never around them. So I kind of grew up in an odd household where guns weren't looked at as bad, but my stepmother just didn't like them. But everyone around our household, our neighbors, people at school had firearms, and it wasn't a taboo thing to see them in people's windows or go to the store and see them. It just was never taboo. When I became a teenager, I had friends that went shooting, so that's when I got into shooting. It seemed normal. It was a normal part of life. People hunted, people went out and shot guns, people carried their firearms. It just wasn't something that people looked at as a bad thing.
mhm. Where did you grow up? What was this the same place the whole
I
time?
grew up in Montana.
Oh, okay.
So I'm from Montana. I moved to California 7 years ago. But
Oh,
I spent several years going back, couple years going back and forth from Montana to California. When
wow.
I became a hunter's ed instructor in Montana, and I had my CCW. Now it's constitutional carry in Montana, but back then it was CCW. And it was super simple. You don't register your guns there. You don't put down the firearm on your CCW application. And the only thing I put was self-defense, just those 2 words, hyphenated words. And they printed out my ID at that interview and paper clipped it on, and I got it a week later. And that was that. And I came down to California and none of those things mattered. And I was so infuriated when I got here and someone said, "You got to register your guns now." What does that mean, first of all? And secondly, why? Nothing has changed from what I was in Montana to what I am in California. My firearms didn't do anything different. I didn't do anything different. I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. But I really wanted to get involved in California and try to help the people in California have the same rights and freedoms I had in Montana. That's when I jumped in.
Wow. This is the first time hearing. Of course, I don't know you that well, but it's really, really refreshing to hear this story. I love how you said it too, like the way you set it up. I like loved the detail that you gave about the process in Montana and just how it's like, yeah, why can't it be that? You know,
Yeah,
why does it have to be so crazy complicated? What is the magic of writing down a serial number? What's that do? How's that help you defend yourself?
right,
I mean, the point is to keep you safe, right? That's the whole point. So that you're not murdered by some
right.
psycho. So why why do you want to bring some bureaucrats and pencil pushers in to complicate it and make you poorer because they want to take your money more? That's crazy.
It's just about power and control, and I think maybe instilling a
Yeah.
little bit of fear that the government has all of your numbers.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow, what a refreshing system that Montana has. And it's even less complicated now, you said, because of constitutional carry, right? So
you can
now,
constitutionally carry, I think we have 24 states now that are constitutional carry, which means if you're a resident, you don't have to get a CCW.
okay.
Now, if you do get a CCW though, some of the benefits, like you hear of the Arizona and Utah permits, they allow you to carry in states that you're not a resident of. So that's a plus of getting a CCW, is that it actually expands where you can carry. Now, if you live in Montana and want a constitutional carry, you can't take that out of the state unless you have a CCW.
I see.
But California doesn't recognize anybody's CCW,
Yeah, right.
so
Well, that
they're
might
very particular.
I'm hoping that will change.
Yeah.
There's changes happening, and it's going to be interesting to see what the kind of pressure that we put on is actually going to really shape things, I think, here in California. So it's really cool that what part of Montana are you from?
I was born and raised in Billings,
Hmm.
South Central Montana, but I spent my whole adult life rural.
Yeah,
So I
it seems like
got
the whole state is rural up there. Yeah.
well, yeah, we do have less than 1 million people in the entire state, and cows outnumber us by several to one.
Wow.
It's very nice. But now
Yeah.
we've had that exodus during the Rona where everybody went to Utah, Arizona, Texas, Montana,
Hmm.
and now they had that show Yellowstone come out. I've never seen it, but
Yeah.
I call it the Montana Mafia show, and it made
Yeah.
the state even more popular, which has driven up prices of everything there.
Great. Oh man, I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Colorado. I grew up in Colorado, so I've watched Colorado just gradually kind of go down the dumps as well. Just in terms of it's not necessarily all the people moving in, which didn't help, I don't think, but it's just the political climate in Colorado really took it seemed to become more California, and I didn't
Hmm.
like that at all. So the way I grew up in Colorado, I grew up with guns in the house, and they weren't locked up or anything. They were accessible, but there were strict rules, and we had a disciplinarian father that we were all scared of, and there's no way we were going to transgress those rules. But I mean, it was kind of family where I had a BB gun when I was in elementary school. I think junior high was when I got my first firearm. I think seventh grade, I got my first 22 rifle, and I used that a lot. Going up to the mountains, it was kind of thing where if you knew teenagers that could drive, which I did, all you needed was a 16-year-old,
Right,
sometimes a 15-year-old, but there's
right,
somebody that could drive, and that you just went up to the mountains, and you within an hour you were able to fish and shoot. I'm not always sure that we did so legally, but it never hurt anybody, and
right.
it was a lot of fun, and we could go buy ammo, no big deal, big brick of ammo. I had a paper route, so I could buy ammo, and then when I was 14, I had a big game rifle, 300 Winchester Magnum. So a little
Yeah,
bit big for me, but it's big game. It's elk, I mean,
yeah.
and then 16 saw a shotgun. And I had that shotgun at the end of my bed throughout the rest of my high school. I mean, it wasn't loaded or anything. I mean, there were certain like cultural things that were in place that
Right.
you would have just been shamed into oblivion if you violated any of that, right? I mean, we had
Yeah.
knives. I had a buck knife, like 6-inch buck knife. I just liked looking at it.
Right.
And, sometimes I had it under my pillow and acted like the Russians were attacking. And,
So we might
that,
need that again soon.
yeah. Well, did you ever see Red Dawn?
I didn't know.
Well, that was filmed in Colorado. It came out when I was a kid. And that was that kind of movie where, they're using whatever they have to fight against the Russians.
Yeah.
And it turns out, geez, now this year, that film is probably pretty popular in places like Ukraine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as far as concealed carry goes, that that really wasn't an issue for me growing up. Like I can conceive of why I could conceive of that issue, but it wasn't something I thought carefully about because we were
Oh,
more like a long gun family.
okay.
But later on, when I went into the Navy, I was trained in pistols by Navy SEALs.
Mhm.
I did that, and I think that was the first time I shot a Glock. That was the first time I shot a Sig Sauer. Um, got qualified on those, and they had some other crazy stuff like this one SEAL who had all these bullet wounds. I mean, he looked like a machine. He looked like half machine, like a Terminator. He had the Desert Eagle, and that's the first time I'd ever even heard of that gun.
Yeah, those are a stout gun.
Yeah. So we were out at Fort Ord shooting, shooting whatever they had, and the SEALs that were living on base, the base I was stationed at, which was a language school, it was an Army language school. So there's a lot of special forces there, special
Mhm.
warfare. They just kept the guns in their car. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, isn't that illegal? I don't know, but they didn't care. And that was the California that I remember from when I first moved here in the 90s. Um, but as I got older, I started really thinking about the laws against concealed carry here, and just and I started teaching in the colleges and started explaining to the female students that I had the options are limited legally for them. Like if they are in a rough area, they are and they put a little pistol, like if they're trained and they grew up shooting and they can handle
Mhm.
that pistol in their purse and they go to work, in some rough area, maybe it's a bad time, maybe it's or whatever. You could be in danger anytime. If a woman's intuition is that she's in danger, and sometimes that intuition is calibrated correctly, and there is a threat, and it's rational to believe there really is a threat, possibly,
Yeah.
right? Well, then the court, according to the California law, that woman is equally a criminal as the one that would attack her. And that makes no sense. That just makes no sense. And it seems like Montana can clearly see that. I don't know why people in California can't see that.
You're meaning without a concealed carry permit, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And those laws are, I mean, we elect the buffoons that are in charge of these laws at the DOJ. And we have a governor who's an idiot as well. So I mean, it's our responsibility to work the grassroots and get people at the lower levels, at the larval stage, before they become the bigger animal that they are at the state level. You got to get city council and school board, normal people elected, right-minded thinking people elected, constitutionalists elected, so that when they get bigger and they go on to Congress or Senate or governor, you're going to have somebody that's on your side. And we missed the boat in the last 20 years. I think we rested on our laurels as a nation, thinking, well, grandma and grandpa handled it and they had it, but that generation didn't train the next generation to take over where they did all the fighting. And then it had a big gap. And all those
Yeah.
people that fought for these rights, whether they're members of big national lobby groups that fight for firearms or local groups, it's kind of fallen to the wayside because no one was mentored to take over that job. And now we're trying to play defense instead of offense because we're getting
Yeah.
our butts kicked.
Right.
But you briefly touched on the gun culture.
Hmm.
And we hear gun culture every time there's a bad thing happening with a firearm, that, oh, it's the gun culture. Actually, people in the gun culture don't go out and do these shootings. They aren't the bad
Right.
guys. I've gone to several years and years of NRA conventions where you have 80,000 people all armed with pushing strollers, and there's never been one firearms accident. Because that's the real gun culture. It's not these yahoos that pick up a firearm and commit crimes. That is not the gun culture. It's definitely the culture of respect for life, respect for your rights, respect for firearms. And then you said CCWs are a big thing. And you've probably taught about it, but when I do my CCW classes, and even when I do the Sheriff Bianco's monthly events, I tell them the history of the CCW and how it began when the slaves were freed. And they figured out that these slaves could get firearms, and then they wouldn't be able to go get them back, the slaves. So they decided to create a concealed carry permit at that time, essentially preventing African Americans from getting firearms, because the people in charge at the time were white lawyers, white judges, white police officers. All of your politicians were white. So at that point, they decided, well, they're going to have to apply to us to get a concealed carry permit. And of course, they denied most of them. It was just a way to prevent them from getting firearms. So if people looked at that, during Black History Month and all these things we celebrate, that was to target one of their constitutional rights. And it's the second one. So it must be pretty important because it's in the top two. But the CCW has a bad history, and I have no reason. I don't like the CCW at all. Again, like the sheriffs, their hands are tied by the DOJ, which we need to get out of there. We need to get these people in charge of taking away our rights. Well, that's what they see their job is. Get them out of there.
That's right. Well, I love the fact that your philosophy is to start local. I mean, Gavin Newsom started as a mayor. He was a local politician. Of course, in San Francisco, it'd be very difficult to start a local group in San Francisco, but I don't think there is one. Maybe there is, but I don't know about it. And so, it's the philosophy you're outlining there is that the start local philosophy is that it's not often that you have just some big name pop into office at a high level. I mean, it happened with Trump, it happened with Schwarzenegger, but those people are already famous. It's usually that actually Reagan too, I would say, but he was already famous. But normally people start out small, right? And they grow, and they're constantly trying to get the next office. And so you're saying if we have a political presence that's a healthy activism, a healthy gun culture activism community that's informed and that's trained, we can develop a context where we rein in some of the crazy before these people, and maybe we can turn some of these people, because some of it's just ignorance, wouldn't you say?
Some of it's definitely ignorance. We've trained a lot of people that came in because they were curious and ignorant and wanted to know, kind of prove them right about how evil these gun owners are, and we wound up turning them around.
Is that right?
But at the local level, politicians, they want whoever's giving them the money. They'll tote whatever line the guy that's giving them the money wants them to tote. But winning their hearts and minds carries a lot further. So if you have the political backing with money and helping them go door to door, helping them put up signs, that's way more effective in securing their heart and mind at that stage of the game, so that they're invested emotionally and mentally as they head up the chain, and keeping that relationship going, not just saying, oh, you made it to city council, see you later. Don't allow them to get away with that. Don't allow them to brush you off once they've achieved their goal. We don't do the old school stuff anymore. We don't do the phone banking, and we don't help them go door to door, but the local folks need to go door to door. One politician can't do it himself. We look at Trump winning, he didn't get to go to all these small town places. These people printed out these big cardboard Trumps and had events with a cutout of him. I actually spoke at some MAGA events where there was a cutout of Trump, and people loved
Yeah.
it. They wanted their picture with this cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
It's about how
That's
to get
hilarious.
people excited at the local level and do some
Yeah.
of the work. Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard work, isn't it? Because I mean, going door to door is not necessarily something you want to do on a Saturday.
Nobody wants to do that stuff.
Right.
But
Well,
but
maybe
if you
some
don't
people
do
do,
it,
but they're weird. Yeah.
but there's something for everyone. Like that's
Yeah,
something that
that's
I've
true.
incorporated in a lot of the volunteers. I mentioned that we do the monthly event for Sheriff Bianco
Yeah,
in
I was going to
Riverside.
ask you about that and some of the training you do, the CCW stuff.
Yeah. So I did some training under Sheriff Sniff for the NRA. I did Women on Target for him.
So
And then when Denise,
when you say you did the training, not as a student, you're an instructor.
I'm an instructor. I'm an NRA
Yeah.
instructor, a DOJ instructor, and a Riverside CCW instructor. And I do have my own training company. It's Vanguard Training and Consulting. So I do my own curriculum because I looked at some of the old school curriculum and thought this is way outdated. It's not really pertinent. And some of the course material just teaches you basic firearms. And as an instructor, I went through instructor courses that taught me how to shoot a firearm, which is great. I knew how to do that. Didn't tell me how to publicly communicate. There was no public speaking. There was no PR. There was no empathy or how to relate to individual students. None of that's taught in these instructor courses. And I wanted to do that. So I developed my own curriculum with my company to teach other people how to teach better. So when Chad and Denise Bianco reached out to me, they knew I've done
That's the
teaching.
sheriff, right?
The sheriff
That's
of
the current
Riverside.
sheriff of Riverside
Yes.
County, California.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. And he's going on his second term. Yahoo! He's very pro Second Amendment. Real great person. Real great person. Just
I've
down
heard great
home
things
folk.
about him. I've never met him yet. I haven't met him yet.
Oh, yeah. If you get the chance. Real
I've met
great.
Don Barnes. I sat next to the
Okay.
previous event that I sat at the table with you. The previous time we had it, Don Barnes was sitting next to me. He's actually
Orange
sitting
County
next to my
Sheriff,
wife,
yeah.
but yeah. So we ended
Orange
up
County-
talking to him for a long time.
You know what? He's very pro CCW as well, thankfully. Good guy as well.
Don Barnes is the
Chad-
current Orange County sheriff
Yeah.
in California.
Yeah, he is. So Chad and Denise wanted to do a firearms clinic for women, mostly women, to train women how to shoot firearms and take the fear out of it and give them education so they can be safe and educated. And that's the whole thing with firearms, safety, education. So we do a monthly event where we allow 25 women to register for the class. It's $50, but everything is provided. I'm the director of the clinic, so Chad comes and speaks a little bit. Denise is usually there. It's held at Ben Clark Training Center in Riverside.
Say the name of it again. Say the name of that store again.
Ben Clark. It's Ben Clark Training Center. It's the sheriff's training center.
Okay.
But everyone there is volunteer. Everyone that staffs these events are volunteers.
Well,
there
yeah,
are people
for $50, there's no way they couldn't be a volunteer.
Right. They're all
covers
people that
nothing.
it covers nothing. You're right. These are all people I've personally trained. I've spent 8 hours with them. They've also gone through, most of them have gone through my class and then they wanted to volunteer. But I made them go through my teaching curriculum. And then we went to the range and they had to qualify and show me that they can safely shoot a gun. 'Cause it's one thing to shoot a gun, but another to teach. And there's one thing to teach, but not be able to do what you're teaching. So
Yeah.
I
Do they have to
I
bring their own
personally-
guns?
For the training that I did. So the students that come to the sheriff's event, the firearms are provided.
Okay.
They just bring their person. The ammo's provided, targets are provided. They
So
go
it's
through
easy.
they go through a basic firearm class showing them how the firearm is made, how to hold it, how to line up their sights, how ammo's made and how they work together. We talk about local gun laws, including the roster, the magazine limitations, CCWs and the history of CCW. We touch on how CCWs are applied for, what the process is. And then we go to the range where we have one instructor per lady. So we have one trained line coach per lady, and we have an RSO, a chief RSO. I'm also a range safety officer, RSO. We have someone RSO, and then they take turns. They all shoot 10 rounds in a 22. Then the next set shoot 10 rounds until everybody's gone up twice. They get a certificate for going. They get to hang out with the sheriff. It's a really good event.
Wow.
Every single time we do this, people want to come back and they want to volunteer and they want to shoot and they want to teach others how to do it. And it's just fantastic. We get teachers that want other teachers to come get trained. It's really neat.
A 22 pistol?
Yeah.
What's the pistol?
Well, there's 10 different
Oh, there's 10 different
22s.
ones. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So say you're on a GSG, the first time you may go over and get a buck mark the second time or something.
Oh, okay.
But we don't allow the student to have the same instructor twice, because in the real world, you're not going to have the same instructor twice.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
But
wow.
it's a lot of fun. We all love it. We love it. We do it once a month, and it's
And
just a
it's
blast.
it's maxed at 25.
It is.
That's a lot of manpower, or woman power, I should say, to have one instructor per shooter.
It is. Well, there's only 10 10 targets set up at a time. So we do cycle in 10 at a time just for safety reasons. And it's very monitored. It's very controlled environment. Safety is the #1 priority we have.
Yeah.
But we just all love doing it so much.
So tell us what that's called again. It's a clinic?
Sheriff Chad Bianco's, it's what is it called? It's just his firearms event. Yeah.
For new women shooters.
You can be a new shooter. You can have a little experience. We've had folks with CCWs come to the class just to see what it's about. And it usually sells out within 3 minutes of announcing the ticket.
How long does it take to do the whole training from the time you show up to the time you leave?
We start at 8 and we try to get done at 12, depending on how everyone's doing.
Gotcha. And is that really jamming? Is that really like rushing through, or is that taking your time?
No, like for example, last time 2 of my instructors had the Rona, so they weren't allowed to come, obviously. So we were shy 2 instructors, and all I did was cut out some of my horrible jokes from the classroom portion. And it was better for everyone, actually.
Oh man, I don't know. Depends on how awesome these jokes are. Can you give me one?
Yeah, well, it depends. Usually Chad will give me something to lead with.
Okay.
Like last time Chad was talking about how if he had a camera watching these ladies come in, and when they leave, there was a transformation. So
yeah,
that helps me have some fodder, because the rest of the time I could say, okay, Bobby by Bianco, we're all transforming today. You know, here's our yoga pose when we stand. So it gave me fodder to work with the crowd.
Oh, that's cool.
So we just have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you do that for the previous sheriff, or is it something specific about this sheriff that makes him special?
This one, I think these are so much better, and I'm not knocking anything that we did before, because we had a great time before too.
Okay.
But the stuff we did before was NRA focused. This is a non-denominational group, where a rainbow herd is what we would call it, from like Colorado or Montana, where the cows are all different colors. The instructors are from all different backgrounds.
Okay.
It's not agendized. There's no specific gun group focused. We're all involved in different gun groups, and our focus is only promoting the Second Amendment and only getting these shooters trained and safely out there. That's it. I mean, we don't talk and promote specific groups. It's just, this is what we're here for. I do usually say a prayer at the beginning for safety, talk about our constitutional right, and we go out and have a good time. And I just think it's great. I think it's great. It's much more freeing than our last events as well. There's more of a relaxed atmosphere.
Sounds like it's more healthy.
It's way healthier. It's way healthier. Yeah. Everyone leaves having a good time.
Now, are the instructors, they're all female?
Many of them are, but not
males
all
there
of them.
too? Okay.
There are males. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to training women specifically, do you feel like women tend to want to be trained and mentored by another woman?
I,
Or is that,
yes, partially yes. But I think the main goal is not to be trained by their spouse or their boyfriend.
gee, I wonder why that would be. Hmm.
I think there's several reasons.
Yeah.
If you think back to, maybe you can relate to this. If you think back to when you first learned how to shoot a firearm, somebody probably just handed you a firearm and said, you point it in this direction and you press the trigger. And this is, you learn how it worked. When it's been a while and somebody new comes in, and I think it happens more with men, is they don't remember having to have learned that. They just expect that person to know this because it's so common to them. And women get intimidated right away, so they're already nervous.
Yeah.
They're afraid of the firearm anyway. So there's two things.
Sure.
And then there's this underlying pressure that women don't talk about, that they want to be the best for their boyfriend or their husband at whatever it is. They don't want to be anyone to be better than them because
Oh,
you want to be held to that standard in your spouse's or partner's eyes, right?
okay.
So that they have all these nerves and then they mess up. And a lot of times these ladies have had a bad experience where they're yelled at or they're given a gun that's too big for them, that's not handed a 45 when they have never held one, something like that.
Hmm.
So they just don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. So they come to these events knowing that there's a woman teaching the class, that
Mm-hmm.
no question will be looked down upon because we can relate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't expect anything from them except to be there and be safe and want to learn. I don't
Okay.
have an expectation that they're going to know what they're doing.
Mm.
And they don't feel like they should have to impress me because
Right.
they're all on the same level.
I see.
But it's a good class. And I have the women will prefer, sometimes they'll prefer the men that are there.
Mm.
We
Yeah,
had
if a
we've
man
actually
does all that, I mean, if a man does all that and
uh,
yeah, I've had men, I've had a specific example of a friend of mine that was, his nerves were just shot. I mean, he had a lot of anxiety, and he, during the public health panic when that first started, he wanted
mhm.
he wanted something for safety. He was originally talking about getting a pellet gun, and I was like, yeah, if
I
you want
won't
to
do
get
it.
sued
Yeah.
and then dead. Well, actually, either one. But he, all the advice I was getting from people that love to dispense advice, which in our community is everybody, right?
Right.
And I just kind of, the older I get, I just kind of laugh because it's just kind of funny, how people are. But they were saying, get a 38, get a 9 millimeter, nothing less than a 9 millimeter, or you're dead, kind of thing. And I was just like, you know what? If he has proper shot placement at 22, he might be able to handle that. I don't think he could handle anything higher, but 22 is better than a BB gun. You can be killed by a 22
Yeah.
easily. So I wouldn't want to be shot by one. So anyway, he ended up getting a buck mark. Uh, um,
Okay.
and I walked him through the whole process, and I taught him how to clean it and taught him how to shoot it. And I realized the point of this story is I realized my shortcomings as a mentor, and I had to learn. Like, I got to slow way down because
Mhm.
though you said it beautifully, you described it beautifully, the nerves, right? You shut down. I mean, if you make a mistake, it's outside of your window of tolerance. You feel maybe shame, or you can't process it fast enough, or it's
Yeah.
jolting. I mean, and it's loud in there, it's
Huh.
jolting. And if you feel judged, that could be overwhelming, and you're not going to take that information in. It's not going to be fun. So I had to slow way down with this gentleman and just really be patient. And I ended up having a good time and learning a lot about myself. Like, somebody was probably very patient with me when I was a little kid. And you're right.
Mhm.
I don't even remember what it was. I don't have any memory of someone giving me a gun the first time. I just don't.
Mhm.
It was so normal for me, and everything was so normal, how to clear jams, how to it was so intuitive for me what to do. And it wasn't intuitive for him. And I became frustrated And I was like, oh man, I'm just a horrible teacher here. I'm- this is so I really appreciate your approach. How did you figure out, did you just always have this talent for knowing how to teach firearms, do you think, or did you have to grow into it?
No, I don't think, I mean, I've always liked teaching and I've always liked activism. I didn't think about that part until looking back at it. I was writing letters to the editor when I was a teenager. I didn't think about that until years later. I'm like, where did this come from? Oh, I guess I've always had that passion to do that. I think I just my heart went out to these folks that didn't know how to do this and were scared of it because these are potential people that could help us vote the correct way and change things for the better for everyone and wind up protecting themselves and their families. And a lot of the times, the women are the ones that say no guns in the house or yes guns in the house, and they're also around the children all the time. They can influence the children's view on firearms. And you're talking about learning as a teacher. That's I feel like every time we do an event or every time I'm with a student, I'm learning. I'm learning because I'm learning that individual. I'm learning something new to maybe incorporate or something about myself that I like or I don't like. Or if you're not learning as a teacher, then you're not an effective teacher either.
Hmm.
It, and that's something we go over with my instructors. We roundtable after every event. We go and have lunch together. And we do send
Oh,
out, we
wow.
give out cards to the students, an evaluation card. And I want them to tell us anonymously what they like and don't like and pull out the instructor. Like, tell us the instructor what you don't like, what you do like, what would you change? But because we all want to learn,
Hmm.
if you think you're an expert, I don't want people to go to a quote unquote expert because none of us are experts.
Hmm.
As long as we're alive, we have something to learn. And whether I'm learning it from another instructor or someone who's got more experience, or I'm learning it from a student, it's the same value to me as a person. And we powwow at the lunch after our events and we criticize each other or we point out what went well, what didn't go well. But there have been times where to the sheriff or somebody else who's there, it looks like things went beautifully, but I know behind the scenes we were short this person and I had to pull this person aside because they had an attitude
Hmm.
or whatever it is. To me, I thought it was a disaster.
Hmm.
And I'll spend days rewriting things or beating myself
Wow.
up about it because it's so important. What we're doing is so important.
Wow.
Um, but I don't think I was ever natural at it. I just had a desire to do
Mhm.
it and I wanted to be good at it because it was so important.
Yes. Wow.
But
Ha-
anybody can be good at something as long as they have desire and effort. And that's what I told the students. You can all be great at this. You just need desire and effort. That's what sets you apart from professionals. That's it. Oh.
When you were growing up in Montana, do you recall, and if you don't want to share this, just, feel free to just move on, but I'm just curious, when you grew up in Montana, w- when did you decide that you wanted to carry a gun? Was there a
Oh,
specific incident? Was there something that scared you, or was it something you didn't even think that much about and you're just like, yeah, I'm 18, I'm going to carry a gun now, or it's 21, whatever it is.
I think it was just that I knew that there were bad things out there. And when I was old enough to be able to take a firearm as an option, then I thought that was probably my smartest option. There are other things you could use, but the gun is the most effective.
And did you get trained up on a pistol or revolver at that time, or had you already been introduced to a revolver or pistol at the
I'd
time?
already had more experience with handguns because those are target shooting guns. So I didn't have structured lessons like most of us didn't have structured lessons. We didn't go to a class or anything, but I already knew how to do it. When I went to get a concealed carry when I was older, I wanted it. I had kids. I was a single mom for a long time.
Mm.
But you have things where people will break down, especially in rural towns. There's a lot of freeway and a lot of things can happen. You can hit a deer, you can get a flat tire, something malfunctions with your vehicle, weather happens.
Yeah.
And there you are on the side of the road with a lot of interstate and not a lot of people going by to
Yeah.
see you there. So I think that's
No,
when
no
I looked at it.
police. No
No
police.
police, strangers passing by on the interstate. There's just all kinds of reasons. And then hiking, of course, I didn't need a CCW for that, but anytime you're hiking in the wilderness, there's a chance that you're going to run across a bear or a mountain lion, which we had all over our property. Just having the most effective way to defend myself was it was reasonable for me to pick a firearm for that.
Do you prefer revolver or semi-auto?
I have to confess, I love my revolver the best.
God bless
Even
you. God bless
but
you.
it is not on my concealed carry, because if you ever have to use your concealed carry, they will take your firearm, at least temporarily. And depending on what county you're in California, you may or may not get it back. Now in Riverside, you have a way better chance if it's in self-defense.
Yeah. Yeah, that there you're edging into the intermediate and advanced material there. Yes, that's interesting. I know it's
But I love my
correlated.
38. Yeah, I have a 38 Lady Smith. It is
Okay.
a non-rostered gun, but I bought it in Montana and brought it into California and registered it, as I'm a law-abiding citizen, even though I'm against the whole idea.
Yeah.
But I do love my 38. It's smooth. I know it the best.
What color is it?
It's got the wooden handle and it's steel.
Okay. It's wooden. Okay. So it's not like pink or something like that.
Oh heck no, I don't do the
You didn't
pink
go that
guns.
far. You
No,
didn't go there.
no.
It doesn't have a hammer, right? It's got an internal hammer. It's not
It
an
has an
exposed hammer.
It
Oh.
actually has an external hammer. Yeah.
Oh, I like this gun even more. I don't
Yeah.
like I feel like with a revolver, if there's no hammer, what's the point? I do have some shrouded hammers, which
Well,
those are old school. I don't know if they make them anymore, but
we do have a lot of ladies. I actually sold a firearm to a lady who couldn't rack a slide. She was in her 80s. And because of arthritis, the slides options that we have on our roster in California, they're not very female helpful, because a lot of the smaller compact firearms aren't on the roster. You can't buy them. So they have limited choices. So you get like a standard size firearm for somebody that's 85 and has arthritis. Racking that slide or putting it in their purse and having it be comfortable for them
yeah.
isn't a great option a lot of times. So I sold her a revolver, but you have to think about, okay, so you have a revolver, and as a lady, are you putting it in your purse? A lot of times they're putting them in their purse, and that exposed hammer
Yeah.
is going to get snagged on a bunch of stuff, because who knows what's rolling around in the
That's
lady's
right.
purse.
That's right.
So the option to have it internal
Mhm.
helps them in that situation.
That's true. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I
You
don't
don't
put
want
mine in my purse, so I don't have that problem, but a lot of ladies do.
Yeah. What do you think about carrying in a purse? I mean, it should be in a holster, right? Or are you just talking about just loosely carrying it in a purse? You're talking about covering
Oh,
the trigger, right?
right. They're supposed to be, when you're carrying it in a purse or something of that nature, a fanny pack or a backpack is not supposed to be rolling around in there getting your gum and your hair clips messed up in it.
Your key
But a lot
ring.
of people, right, a lot of people do throw it in there, but then you're gonna get gunk in there. You're gonna get garbage stuck in there. It's not gonna be as efficient. You may not be reliable when you need it. So they do have special purses that have the pouch just for your firearm, and that's all you put in there. And then they talk about, women have asked questions, so what if I have to get it out of my purse? Well, don't get it out of your purse. If you have to use it in self-defense, you would just you'd put your hand in your purse and press the trigger through your purse at that threat. And don't take those extra steps so you can't get out of there, But a lot of folks aren't responsible enough to get a holder that protects it and keeps it just by itself. It should be.
Yeah. Can we go back to the issue that you raised? It was a little bit of an intermediate and advanced issue. I love that you brought it up, because I've thought about this quite a bit.
Roster?
Well, no, just that. But that's pretty advanced, I would say. But the issue of thinking about that if you're going to carry a gun, it shouldn't be your favorite gun, which is kind of odd to think because you want to have the one that you're most familiar with and the most comfortable with. You have to trust your life to this thing.
Right.
But at the same time, the realistic, it's very realistic if you're sentimental like I am. I mean, I'm attached to these little things.
Yeah.
I like them, you know, they have personality. The thought of losing it to some bureaucrat idiot that's like, I want it for evidence. We can have it for evidence. Well, it's clearly self-defense, idiot.
Right.
But you know, just that some bureaucrat would want to keep it forever in some evidence locker, and you'll never give it back. And it's a nice gun. So
Right.
how do you process through that? You want a crappy gun that you don't like, but obviously you have to trust it, trust it for
Right.
self-defense. So how do you figure that out?
Do. Well, that's the bummer is some people, a lot of people can only get one firearm. And
Yeah,
if that's the case, you are gonna lose that gun temporarily if you have to use it in self-defense. You're just gonna have to accept that. If you can afford more than one firearm, sure, go for two, but make sure that both of them you like and are. Let me go shut this door real quick. Somebody's
okay.
hammering over there. Shut the door. Okay, sorry about that. Somebody's doing construction really quick.
No problem.
Um, like for example, my conceal, one of the firearms is a Springfield XD
Okay.
9mm. I like it. I practice with it. It's just not my favorite. So there's a way you can have two nice guns that you like, but your favorite is just not on there.
Right.
So if you have a favorite, there's always a possibility if you conceal carry that you will have to use it in self-defense. That's the
Right.
responsibility you take on.
Yeah.
If you know that and your Springfield XD9 is your favorite gun, you might want to invest in a second favorite.
Yeah.
And do that instead of, or other people will put a bunch of them. You can put up to 6 on your CCW in Riverside. So you can put 6 guns on there and maybe not carry your favorite around all the time. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Switch them out.
But they don't keep them forever. The cops that don't, the sheriffs that don't give them back, they destroy them.
Okay.
Policeauctions.com. No, I don't know really what
Right.
happens with them, but they say they destroy them.
That makes almost no sense to me. To me, it's like if a police officer seizes your car, for example, or something, like you it's impounded,
Right.
and then they say, we're going to destroy your car. And it's like, that's not what they do. They auction it and it goes back
Right.
into the private hands, which
Right.
so stupid. Anyway, so do you have any thoughts on caliber? Do you have a philosophy? Are you set on, you know, never use anything lower than XYZ for self-defense?
So in CCW, the
Yeah.
law is it has to be 380 or above. That is
Is
the
that a
law
state
for,
law?
yes, for concealed carry.
Okay.
The reasoning is you want to shoot as many rounds, the least amount of rounds to take down the threat.
Okay.
The theory is with the 22, we still consider it lethal. It's a firearm, still consider it lethal, but the rounds are so much smaller. You may have to put more rounds than necessary downrange. Whereas a 9, you may handle it with 1, 22 may be several, and the several rounds equals time equals potential harm to yourself. So the higher caliber, they say 380 or above, less rounds, take down the threat.
So for people that don't know what a 380 is, it sounds like a pretty big. Okay, so if people don't know anything about like 9mm, okay, you're comparing that to a 380. It sounds like 380 is bigger because if you had a 9-year-old and then a 380-year-old.
Well, when we talk about these, you have to put that there's a decimal in front of all of it. 9, a 40. There's a decimal in front of all these. A 0.380. And well, because the military started measuring ammunition, that's how we got all of our measurements. Some of them don't make a lot of sense, but in general, that measurement is just the bore of the firearm. The size of that hole in the barrel of the gun is the size of the measurement of your ammunition.
Yeah.
That's where they get that.
So 380 is just above a 32. That would be another common firearm. Below that would be a 25. And then that's for center fire ammunition. That's the lowest you can go before you're into 22s, which are rim fire. And then right above a 380 is what, a 9mm?
About, yeah.
So do you have a specific, do you recommend that area for women? Or are there ever women that you know that want a 44?
There, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. My
Well, you're from
ex-husband's,
Montana and you have bears, so that would not surprise me at all.
I have to say, my ex-husband's first wife, I'm very good friends with her and her husband. They're two of my instructors. She is a tiny little thing, and she loves her 40s and her 45s. I personally don't, and I'm 5'8". I personally don't want to carry one or practice with one. I don't consider them a fun tool.
No.
But you'd be surprised what people are comfortable with.
Yeah.
I tell women not to go by my opinion or anyone else's, to go to the gun range, go out with a bunch of people that have firearms, whoever it is, and try everything you can get your hands on before you make a decision.
That's really good advice. That's really good advice. Everybody listen to that. That's really good advice.
Later.
Yes, get as much exposure as possible, because you might be surprised and it might not be something you can explain to somebody else.
Right.
You don't need to necessarily explain everything to everybody else.
Right.
If a 45, it might be that the 45, you just like the way it looks and you can handle it fine. And you like the fact that it kicks so much. It makes you feel safe because you know that there's a lot of power there. Okay.
Right.
All right. Well,
some people feel more comfortable. I don't.
Yeah. So that's it. There's always, everybody's got opinions on this, and you're going to develop your own opinion, and you're going to be as annoying as everybody else who has an opinion on all this stuff.
Right. Well,
How do you handle all these opinionated people in the Second Amendment community? Because I mean, I don't know that the First Amendment community is even as opinionated, ironically, because that's free speech.
I would agree with you. There are a lot of, I would say, alphas in the Second Amendment. Handling firearms, you can't be a wallflower that keeps their head down. And the people that go and want to handle firearms, these are assertive people. These are people taking control of their life and their protection. So we don't get a lot of folks that just sit back on the sidelines and say, let it happen to me.
Yeah. Do you feel like we do a pretty good job as a community of policing butt heads and stuff like that? Just kind of reeling in people that are just butt heads.
I think so, but any group has fanatics.
Yeah.
But they're the extremes of every group, and you're going to have them no matter what it is. If it's a football team or it's firearms or it's politics, they're all going to have fanatical sides of it. We have people that paint their face in our firearm stuff too, just like they're Raiders fans.
Oh yeah.
They're extremists. But I think peer pressure from us, because I think we all have a more traditional view of right and wrong. There's more peer pressure there to correct the people that are going the wrong way.
Peer pressure is very powerful. And that's really kind of the political angle here, is if you develop a healthy enough group, which in the Second Amendment community is always a challenge, but if you develop a psychologically healthy enough group where people are not rude and they're leveled up on training and they're not always being taken down the rabbit hole on opinions and stuff. If you develop a cohesive group that could be unified enough where they can put peer pressure on the local politicians and educate them and make it, and also allow people to see how cool it is. I think that the cool factor is also kind of part of the politics of it, wouldn't you say? The cool factor.
It has to be. Well, it has to be cool and fun. I mean, that's like why PTAs have died out, because it's boring and not fun.
PCA?
You gotta find PTA groups, the parent teacher association. These other groups that have died out over the years, because they used to be cool, right? What was it? That old song about the PTA? That sounded like a cool group, right? But now, like our groups, we have boring groups, those groups die out.
Yeah.
But you have to find out what the people are interested in. I'm not going to assign somebody who's horrified of public speaking to be a public speaker at one of our events. If they want to sign people in and that's their bag, hey, there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
And I tell them, find what you're good at and go with that. What we're bad at is playing offense. Our groups are always playing defense, and we need to get one step ahead of the game on all this and make it fun. Reach out to people, be involved locally. Don't lose focus of the goal. The goal is not a lot of the things we do. We don't make money on these things. The goal isn't
That's a
to
big
make money.
misconception. That's a very big because they're always talking about the gun lobby and you
Yeah,
know the gun lobby is like people are just making billions on selling Glocks or whatever. It's like no, the margins on this are very razor thin.
only
And
Glock is making money on Glocks.
well,
Really.
but there's so much
Even
competition
then,
with
right?
guns. I mean, you know, these gun stores are not they're barely making it. A lot of these mom and
Right.
pop stores. So that's a misconception. That's good. And just helping people understand that. Do you think that women should be trained in shotguns and rifles?
I think people in general should be trained on all three. And this is the reason why I give people, even teachers, when I said, and I still do that, if you're a teacher and you want firearms training, I will train you for free. I know that you can't carry firearms on the campuses. I get it. And I've had people kind of come down on me for that on Facebook. Oh, I've had a couple of liberal friends and say, oh, that makes no sense because they can't even carry guns on campus. You're right, they cannot. But we're educating them more. And there are opportunities where if you're in a situation where there's an active gunman, that person takes time to reload, or you can get an
Yep.
upper hand.
Yep.
You can take that firearm from that person. Can you use it? Whether it's an AR, scary AR, or whatever long gun they're using, or a handgun, can you take it and know how to operate that to defend other people and yourself? When you're in a church situation, we've had active shooters in church, or even parking lot, Kmart, whatever it is, can you pick up a firearm that someone else may conceal carry and maybe they got taken out by the bad guy? Can you
Yeah.
pick up their gun and use it in self-defense? Whatever it is.
Right.
Knowledge is power. It doesn't hurt you to know how to use these firearms. It actually helps you.
Yeah. It's like knowing how to drive a stick shift. If you know,
The lost art.
yeah. I mean, you know, it's Apocalypse Now. Actually, that's the wrong movie I was going for because I had Mel Gibson in mind, and I'm forgetting. Oh, Mad Max. I was thinking Mad Max, not Apocalypse Now. That's a Vietnam. That's a crappy Vietnam movie. But yeah, if it's if it's a real bad situation and there's a vehicle that's available and you don't know how to drive it, the same
Right.
thing. So that's what do you think of ARs?
Oh, I think they're just like any other rifle. And if you can use an AR in whatever you're doing, why have the government tell you you can't use this one because I'm scared of it? I'm Gavin Newsom and I'm scared of this gun. So you shouldn't get to use this firearm.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. They're not any more or less dangerous than any other rifle or handgun. And anybody can be as efficient. It's like our magazine ban in California. You can only have 10 rounds because 11 rounds makes you a mass shooter.
Yeah.
Anything can be used as an assault weapon.
Right.
Improvised. When I throw a rock at you, I'm assaulting you. That's an assault weapon at that point.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just media nonsense. They're the loudest and therefore they're the rightest according to the people that vote for these yahoos in office. It's just not true. It's just not true. They're not educated and they're not exposed to the facts. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go by what the media says, and actually, instead of actually going to a firearms class or learning about a firearm, I'm going to believe that this scary gun that CNN tells me is a mass murdering machine is a bad thing instead of finding out for myself. But again, we're always playing defense.
Yeah. Desiree, you come off as I'm listening to you. You're so well spoken. You're so confident. You're so calm. And were you always this way, or did this come from is this genetic, or do you take medication for this? Is there medication people can get to be like you?
Medication?
I
No, my
mean,
parents
you
would say
obviously
it's
can think critically, you can think for yourself, you can see through the media lies and distortions. So how did you get to be that way? Were you always that way? Or
I think it was raised by smart people. Um, and we weren't as I didn't raise my children with TV. I just recently bought a TV. So I reduced my exposure to
thumbs up?
media.
Uh,
Right. So I do, but if I see something, I'll research it or I'll find out myself. I appreciate the comments, but I was never good at speaking. I was so shy as a kid, and I was raised Catholic, that I would lip sync to the church hymns in church because I was that shy.
Hmm.
I would just mouth the words. I was the Milli Vanilli of the Catholic Church when I was a kid. But
Wow.
I was very shy. It wasn't until I was on the Firing Line radio show with Philip Naiman. The first time I didn't expect to be on the show. My ex was on the show, and I was just holding a coffee in the background. And Philip Naiman said, and after the commercial, she is going to speak on this program about this event. I had never been to that event. I had no idea what I was going to talk about.
Oh,
And so I had about 2 minutes to make something up.
wow.
I got on there and I just BS'd my way through it. And I didn't know most of it. I just said, well, this is what I'm told. I don't know about this. I don't know. And when I got done, the criticism I got from the ex was, you said 21 times.
Oh my gosh.
And that's all I could think about going forward. And I was scared to death. But at that moment, I thought, you know what? If I could get rid of some of these weird things, because I care about what I'm saying, but I need to know what I'm talking about. So I need to go get educated. And I also need to just relax. And if I don't know something, say I don't know, and then watch my ums, of course.
Yeah.
But at that point, the failure made me want to do better.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how I look at every failure since then is I want to do better. How can I do better at this? Because me failing doesn't help the other person. I'm only hindering a woman who wants to know about guns if I can't help her.
Hmm.
I may be the only time she's brave enough to ask. And then I failed
Yeah.
her if I don't know, or I can't give her the help, or I
Wow.
can't direct her to someone that can help her. And every person we reach out to has a sphere of influence, and they're
Mhm.
going to tell that person and that person and that person. And that's how we're going to change things for the better. So I
Yeah.
think it was just me saying, I'm one of you, you're one of me. There's nothing to be worried about. I'm going to get education so I can help you. I think that's just what it was. I gave a crap. I gave a crap about trying to be better. I gave a crap about other people I ran into.
You have a
No
commitment to
drugs,
excellence. What's that?
no drugs or anything.
No drugs. Okay.
No drugs, nothing like
So,
that.
so in other words, you have a commitment to excellence, and failure's not the end of the line there. So it's like each time there's a little bit of failure, that's just an opportunity to learn from that and move on to be committed to excellence.
Right, right. I think that's how we all need to be. 'Cause none of us, we can do things 1,000 times, but we always have something we can be better at. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanna do more because I think that's how we pass it on. The next generation has to do the same thing we're doing now,
How much ammo should people have?
as much as they can afford.
As much as they can afford. Wow. Some people are like, well, she sounded normal until then. Yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah.
You know when enough is enough.
Hmm.
You don't know. So every time you go to the store, and my dad has this rule, every time you go to the store, get a box of ammo. But they
Wow, I
still
like
sell
your
it at
dad.
Walmart up in Montana though.
They do sell it or they don't?
Yeah, and
They
in
do?
Kentucky. You can still get guns and ammo at Walmarts here.
Oh, really? Do they have like normal ammo, like a 9 millimeter, or is it just 12 gauge?
All
Not
of the
like
ammo.
12 gauges. Yeah. They have all
Have
of it.
all
Huh?
of it.
Wow. I'm coming to
And it's
Kentucky.
no background check when you buy your ammunition.
Yeah.
You can get all
Wow.
kinds of guns here that you can't get in California.
Wow.
Mhm.
How do you, but how are you not broke then? I mean, just like
I don't have
you
residency
went,
in
you went,
Kentucky.
you went to Walmart and just went for, you needed bread and you needed, you had some hiccup cough medicine and you needed some toilet paper and oh, there's some ammo every
Yeah.
time. So like, with these Biden gas prices, I don't know how do you, seriously, budgeting is a big issue in our community because it is just getting more expensive in California, at least. Is it more expensive there in Kentucky for ammo?
It's gotten more expensive here, but it is nothing like California. I mean, you're talking a smaller economy than California, so gas is cheaper, even though it's more expensive for the locals
Yeah.
than they're used to.
Yeah.
Um, Food is cheaper, but more expensive than it usually is. So everything's gone up around the country, Montana, Kentucky, everything. But we're also not ruled by idiots in most of the country. And I tell people once they leave California, it's a whole nother country. California is its own country. They think
Yeah.
differently.
New York
The
City too.
economy's, yeah, it just doesn't, it isn't like the rest of America at
Right.
all.
Right. Right. Yeah. New York City, DC for a long time was an odd duck. Then
Mhm.
they had a shall issue. I actually
Yeah.
think the shall issue changed in 2017 with that Wren decision, Wren versus DC. That
Mhm.
I think that actually helped our latest Supreme Court victory because the people that live in and around DC could all of a sudden get permits. And I think that everybody was like, actually seems safer now. It doesn't seem because the crazies were saying if you let people carry guns, there's going to be a huge spike in crime. That didn't happen. And so I think
Yeah.
the people working at the Supreme Court saw pretty clearly, actually, there's nothing bad happening here. So it's interesting. Do you, how do you stay leveled up on politics and information? Do you have certain sources that you check that are reliable for you?
I try to look at both sides and see what both sides are saying and then actually dig for what's really happening. I'll read the bills. I don't
Okay.
mind reading the bills. And I think it's important for people when I tell people to vote, like just don't read what you're voting for. Don't vote for the face or the name. Actually read the bills you're voting for. There's a lot of hidden things in these bills. You may be voting for, I don't know, marriage type of some sort, but in
Right.
there, something else that affects something else.
Yeah.
That's how we get silly little things passed because they'll stuff them in there. But read the bills, even if they're boring, read the bills. Um, I don't know. I can't recommend anything else except for to just do the research behind what people are saying with their words. You don't know that. You don't know Sally or Joe Bob on any news network over the next person that you meet. Why would you trust them with your vote? You don't know
Mm,
these guys. They don't have your best interest at heart. They have their best interest at heart.
yeah.
So go research who and what you're voting for. What did they vote on? Go to Ballotpedia and look at what your judges and local politicians have actually voted on. And then get rid of them. You know, if
Yeah.
they're a bad person, get them out of there. So
How do you
I don't know.
maintain balance? Because this is a lot. You have to get trained, and then you have to, you know, get involved with local politics. How do you maintain your balance in your life?
I think you have to have something you enjoy. I'm fortunate enough to enjoy the gun stuff.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and
That
I
is,
think you
you're blessed.
and you have to say no to some things. I don't go to some of the more fun things. Like the gun proms, I don't go to all of them just because, like, I didn't go to San Diego this year, which I usually do, and just because I something has to give.
Yeah.
I have to be able to have my mental health, and I work a full time job as a paralegal, so you have to say no to some things. Don't think that you can do it all by yourself because nobody can. And I just enjoy it. I'm lucky enough to enjoy it.
What would you say to the women and men out there listening who are captivated by what you're saying? They're now convinced they've thought about it for a while. They want to be trained, but they don't have a gun. They don't know the first steps. What would you say to them?
Well, depending on where you are, you can go online and find any local groups. You can go to gun ranges. They'll have a whole slew of business cards of instructors and social groups that do that kind of thing. They'll have political groups that you can Google in your area, and they can direct you on local CCW rules. Most of the time, people that are in these political Second Amendment groups have shooting socials they'll go to, or they'll just take you to the range. You can try all of their firearms. They're good coaches at telling you how things work, how to safely do those things, finger off the trigger, point it in a safe direction, never load it until ready to use. Those are the three things. If they're not teaching you something safe, move on to the next person. If they give you a weird feeling, move on to the next person. But don't box yourself in by anybody. Use your brain, your instincts, and try out different things. Try out different clubs, try out different gun ranges, gun stores. A gun store is a great resource. Try to find someone that looks like they've been shooting a while. You don't want to go to a gun store and then see an 18-year-old kid that may only have experience with an AR or something similar. Go to someone who's been shooting you can ask them, hey, how long have you been shooting?
Yeah.
They're more than happy to talk to you about their gun experience at gun. And then they can direct you to clubs. If they only give you one name, then ask them for more names, because they're showing a little bias if they're only giving you one resource.
Yeah.
That might be their favorite guy. Doesn't mean it's your favorite guy. So ask for multiple resources.
Yeah.
And then just try to get your hands on anything you want at that point. Once you're sure I want to get a firearm, go shoot all the firearms that you can get your hands on at your local gun range. Most of them will rent you firearms. And then you can try out what you're going to try out. And then make a decision. Why do I want this, and where am I going to carry it on my person? Where do I work? Is it feasible to take it to work? Do I have to lock it in my car? What's the safe way to do that? You got to think about all these things. When I get it home, where am I safely going to put this firearm? Who's going to have access to it? Don't just walk out of there and have no plan once you have it in your hand.
Especially if there's kids.
Right. And
how do you deal with the
training.
kids? How do you deal with the kids thing? I mean, someone's going to criticize me later because I didn't bring up the kids thing. That's the most obvious thing, though, for parents who have kids of any age. And especially if you have multiple kids, not just one of these little rugrats you got to keep track of. You got lots of them. Maybe you got different ages. Maybe you got some that are teenagers and getting into different things, and maybe you have some younger, really young ones that are getting into things. So is there one answer to that, or what would you say to people that have kids and that's their main concern?
So obviously, as a parent, you're going to know your kid better than anyone. And believe me, the school shooters' families, they knew they were off before they became school shooters. So if there's a mental health issue, that needs to be addressed right away, obviously. But if you have a kid that's 0 to kindergarten, I suggest you start them off as, don't touch the firearm. If you see one, don't touch, go tell a grown-up about it. You don't have them in any way associated with that firearm, because they're not mentally ready for anything past that point. Now, once they're past kindergarten and they start getting curious, it's okay to start talking to them about safety of a firearm, what happens with the firearm. And as they get older, we're talking 8, 9, 10 going up, my kids started out with a 22 Marlin bolt action rifle. And we went outside and shot, they had a Daisy BB gun first, and then they went to the 22 and shot soda cans and stuff like that.
Did you say you went outside and shot? I'm so jealous.
Yeah, in Montana.
So
well, we just shot off the back porch.
No, we just went outside, and then so I showed him the gun, and then we went outside. Would that be so great?
That's how they were raised.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So they weren't afraid. They respected these things and knew what they could do, because they would see damage to things like soda cans.
Yeah.
And they knew by seeing that, it's pretty substantial. And then as they got curious, I did make my kids go through all the basic firearms classes, the long guns, the handguns.
Wow.
I'm sure they dreaded every moment of going to every class I ever taught, but they won't forget it.
Yeah. That's a gift. You gave them a gift.
You have to judge your kid. If you have a 10-year-old kid that isn't mature enough to go shoot a 22, then by all means, don't take that kid out to do that. You have to go by their maturity level. And then always the rule is you never touch a firearm unless that adult is with you. You never touch it. And it shouldn't be accessible to children.
Right.
They shouldn't be able to just go get it. I mean, get a
And
gun
there's
safe or something.
technology that we have that's a lot easier to do that than when I was a kid.
Yeah. When you got gun safes with combinations, you got biometric gun safes. There's never a reason a child should be able to access a firearm. That's the irresponsibility of the gun owner.
Do you think we do a pretty good job in the gun culture of policing that and peer pressure and all that stuff of people that are have kids, training
I think
people up?
so.
Okay.
I think so. I think we're really good about it. I've been to tons of gun shows and they're always with their family. The different conventions always have family. I mean, they're
Yeah.
they're proud of the heritage and they're proud of their constitutional rights and they want to pass that on to their family. I think it's healthy that the
It
whole
is healthy.
family is involved in the preservation of it.
Yeah, that's what makes me so mad when they try to shut down gun shows in California. And it's like, what are you doing? This is how else are kids going to learn healthy and other, adults too? That's
Right.
how we police each other as a peer community by being able to get together and in a safe, structured, orderly environment, showcase knowledge and history and tradition. That's where you
Right.
learn what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And I never see kids misbehaving at gun shows. But if the
No.
gun shows aren't there, how are you? I mean, where are you going to do this? The church parking lot? I mean,
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. They have been shutting down shows in San Diego and
yeah.
I think Orange County still has one, but they're getting few and far between.
There's a statute now that says the Cow Palace in San Francisco can't have them.
Yeah.
It's like just these. I'm so sick of it. So
Yeah.
Desiree, is there anything else that I missed that you wanted to add? How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in, or maybe you don't want the emails, but or whatever, but how do they
Oh,
get a hold of you?
no, they can go to Vanguard Training and Consulting at Gmail. And then my phone number is everywhere, so you can have that.
Okay. Want to
It's
say what it is?
It's 406-698-2964.
And you don't mind 406-698-2964. You don't mind if some random person from Ireland calls you? Because we have
That's fine.
we have people listening in Ireland and Africa, so you might get some African people.
That's fine. That number is out there and has been on the internet forever. So
Okay. And
totally
say
fine.
the Gmail again. It's Vanguard Training.
Vanguard Training and Consulting at
And
Gmail.
the and is spelled out.
AND. Yep.
Okay. And do you have a website you want to?
I do. It's femalefirearmsinstructor.com.
Whoa, you got that?
I do have it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's why I couldn't get it. Female firearms
instructor.com.
Just kidding for everybody. Didn't know that was a joke. I didn't actually try to register that domain. That's a great domain.
Yeah.
Wow. You got that. Femalefirearmsinstructor.com. Dang. Wow. Congratulations. For that a reason alone, people should.
I had a good
contact you.
web guy.
Yeah. How long have you had that domain?
Just this year we've been working on the website.
Okay.
So just this year. Yeah.
Fantastic. What other classes do you teach?
We do private lessons. We also do a situational awareness class that's pretty in-depth. That's actually not taught. Well, I do teach that one, but our main instructor is Rod Wilski. Okay. He's my partner's brother, and he does a really in-depth class. It's really, really powerful. So before you do a CCW, it's a great precursor to a CCW. The goal isn't to have to. Yeah, the goal isn't to have to use your firearm. The goal is to not have to use it.
Yeah, there's lots of different situations that can come up. Like you were alluding to that when you mentioned when we talked about the AR thing, and you said, well, what if you can take the AR from the guy? And actually, it's easier than you might think, because all you have to do is grab the barrel. It's hot. I mean, it would be hot, unfortunately, with if he was murdering people with it, but it's a lot easier to grab. I think it's a lot easier to take a rifle away from somebody than it is for a pistol or something. But yeah, then
Right.
if there's multiple assailants, if you knew how to clear jams and safely handle that firearm for self-defense to save innocent life, that's situational stuff, right? Do you teach that stuff?
We have, so the president of my company, Larry Wilski, who's retired 30-year Navy SEAL. He's a command master chief. You might like talking to him too. He
I
teaches stuff.
absolutely would love talking to him. Do you think he would want to come on? I
Oh
was in
yeah,
the
I'm
Navy.
sure.
I was in the Navy, so I'm a big fan of Navy guys.
I
So
think
he
he
was a
ran for
master chief?
Senate. He was a command master chief Navy SEAL.
Wow.
And I think he
That's a
ran
big
for
deal.
Senate in San Diego County a couple years ago. I think
What's his name?
Larry Wilske, Wilske, run for Congress or Senate, something like that. Then I'll give you his number afterward.
Okay.
And he teaches more of the combat type defense stuff.
Yeah,
The more hands-on grabbing things and
I'm sure. Yeah.
the move and shoot stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that I consider a lot more fun, but you have to
Yeah.
be more advanced in skill level.
Well, the whole idea of getting into the mindset of, in most situations, you're not going to use your firearm.
Right.
It's thank God you have it. I mean, it's all about
Right.
options, is my point. It's about
Right.
maximizing your ability to use the options that are available and
Right.
being able to see them for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
So there's
agree.
training out there for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Desiree, you're a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. We thank you so much for coming on and spending your valuable time with us.
I had a blast. Thank you for having me on.
I had a blast too.
Oh, good. No pun intended, right?
Yeah. Don't want to trigger anybody. Okay. See you, Desiree. Thanks for coming
Have
on.
a great weekend. All
You
right.
too.
Bye-bye.